All right. Well, I just want to welcome everyone to our workshop today with Truist. I want to give a warm welcome and thanks to our folks from Truist that are joining us today to teach this class to you all. And if just a reminder, if you are joining us on Zoom, please mute yourself and make sure that your video is off. Also, at the very end, we will have a short survey that will be shown. The link to the survey, if you could check that out, it's very quick to do, and it just ensures that we are serving you all the best that we can. But I will turn it on over to our folks from Truist.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So I'll just start by introducing myself for those of you that may not have attended a prior session. My name is Jordan Woldridge. I'm a business banking leader for the West Virginia region. I cover kind of the southern part of West Virginia from a commercial and business lending standpoint. I am here in Beckley today. Beckley is where I'm primarily based out of, but occasionally down in Mercer County and Greenbrier County, and then on occasion over to Nicholas County as well. So out and about quite a bit, but definitely excited to have this discussion with everyone today. And I have two Truist teammates with me as well today, and I will give both of them a chance to introduce themselves as well. Jean, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning. My name is Jean Muller. I live in Richmond, Virginia, and I've been with Truist Bank for almost 14 years. And before that, I actually had a lunch truck for 15 years. So I've got a little experience in the business, and I'm looking forward to maybe offering some advice. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Jean. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for having us. My name is Nicholas Hale. You can feel free to just call me Nick, and I work out of Cookeville, Tennessee, in Truist Wealth and Premier Care. I've been with the company for about 3 years now, and we deal with multiple lines of business within the bank just to help our clients. And during the pandemic, I also founded and operating a cleaning service called A Clean Place in the form of an S Corp, and I look forward to answering some of your questions. Jordan, would you mind taking us along?
Sure, absolutely. You want us to go ahead and get started? Everything
Yes,
good to go from a recording standpoint?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so today's session is on something that is very important for business owners of all sizes, small businesses, medium and large. We're going to be discussing separating your business and personal finances. It's something that the business owners don't necessarily sometimes think about until after they already get into things, and then next thing they know, they have a lot of debt or deposits in their personal name. So we're just going to talk about the importance of that, why it's necessary, how do you do it, and then just answer any questions that you all may have. So we will shift over here to the slide. So here's just kind of our agenda. Kind of like I mentioned, why is it necessary to separate the personal and business finances? How do you set the business goals to kind of refresh this if you're in a position where you have done this? How do you pay yourself? Most importantly, business owners are always the last to pay themselves back. And then, business structure and organization. Nick and Jean can have a lot of great input on a lot of these items as well with their real world experience that they have. And then, of course, how to organize your finances, and then financial accounts and tools and so forth, anything we can help with in questions. So go here. So what we want to do, this is something that we're supposed to kind of go around and introduce ourselves to everybody. I know there's several people on the call, so we don't necessarily need to jump into that and call out anybody in particular. Everybody has their kind of own internal goals and plans that they have in their mind, so we won't call anybody out in particular. Everybody wants to keep their plans to themselves, and that is perfectly fine. But as Jean mentioned, though, as well as Nick, they both own businesses as well. Well, Jean had one, and so it certainly is a lot of great experience that they can share as well for any real life questions anybody might have. On over here to the good information here on everything. So starting off, why is it necessary to separate your personal and business finances? A lot of people don't understand kind of the importance of doing that. And as I mentioned, sometimes it can come into play a little bit later. But most importantly, we'll kind of go through here the reasons for that. On this one, you can see that there's a few different points here to kind of touch on. I think most importantly is the personal liability protection. And then as well, something that I see quite often is the ability to get financing. Most frequently, I see a lot of business owners that in order to start out, they had to put deposits and debt possibly in their personal name because they had a credit score that was strong enough to be able to get started and out of the gate. And that is perfectly fine. Sometimes you have to do what you got to do to get your business off the ground. However, it is great to know that at some point you need to work to kind of get away from that. And there's a fine line between putting something in your personal name because then it attaches itself to your credit, could impact your debt to income if you go to purchase a home or a car for yourself. Definitely a lot of good things to kind of think about. And then tax implications, you want to know exactly what you're getting into, and it kind of depends as well what the type of business that you have and the ins and outs of that, whether it's an S corporation or an LLC or a single member entity. There's all sorts of ways to kind of go about that, and I would certainly recommend having a trusted financial advisor, possibly a CPA or a bookkeeper, whoever you work with best, that can certainly help you iron out the details and figure out what's best for you based upon the type of establishment for your business here. With this in mind, does anybody have any questions based off of the information on this slide? So we have, clear view of business performance. That certainly is one where it allows you to see the, profit and loss of your business itself, not intermingled with your personal finances as well, to kind of see everything more clearly. Does anybody have any questions on any of this?
Okay. I don't see any questions in the chat.
Okay. But definitely, another one is financial accounts in the business name. It's best to separate that too, just to kind of protect yourself from a reporting standpoint. If it's in your personal name and a lot of money's been rolling through an account, banks don't like to see business transactions rolling through a personal account. It is something that we are regulated on, and if it's business activity going through a personal account, more than likely your bank will have a conversation with you at some point that you need to change the type of account that you're in. And it really kind of limits you too on your abilities. If you're in a business account, that opens you up to be able to send and receive money via ACH or electronic funds transfer, accepting credit card. So while it may seem easy and simplistic in the beginning, it's not necessarily something that benefits you at the end of the day. Gene or Nick, I'll let you all input anything if you'd like on this.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
So what would be the requirements for someone to open up a business account? Do they have to come to the bank with a business license in hand? What are those requirements before they're ready to open that business account?
Yep, sure.
If you want to go ahead with that, Jordan.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step it. This is the joys of doing WebExes. You never know when you're stepping on somebody. But I was just going to say, from a branch standpoint, the business does need to be established with the Secretary of State, having the business registration, tax ID number, all that good stuff, to be able to get that account open. Nick, I'll let you input on that as well.
Yes, and it really does depend on the type of business you're operating. If it's a sole proprietorship, we'll need social security numbers, EIN for partnerships that you would get through the state, actually establishing the business, getting the business license at state and local levels, that will be required to open the bank account, government issued ID, of course. And if you're doing something like an LLC, we'll need the articles of organization. For corporations, that's the articles of incorporation. Those are all organizing documents filed with the state as well. And partnership agreements, we'll need that with the name of the business and the partners, and your certificate of assumed name. That's like your DBA, your doing business as name. We want all of that information just so everything's clear on the front end in establishing that account with us or any bank you choose.
Can I chime in a little bit? This is Jean. I
Yep.
just wanted to say that, and when you're starting a lunch truck business, you're probably creative and you're thinking about all this wonderful food that you have and the specialty that you can produce and market out in the public. Don't let the business part scare you away. You can get through it. Trust me, you will. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Gene. It's good to have some encouragement, that's for sure, because in working with the Secretary of State, not to pick on West Virginia in particular, Nick and Gene both have different state experience as well, Gene in Virginia and Nick in Tennessee. But usually when working with the Secretary of State, nothing is quick, and there's a lot of documentation that can sometimes seem very overwhelming. So utilize a lot of resources as well. When getting into that, reach out to your small business hubs, and they can help kind of work you through the process to make sure you're getting established correctly. Because it's the good thing is it's one time. Once it's completed, you never have to worry about it again, simply other than just renewing it on an annual basis. So, any other questions on this one?
Just one more comment. What you had said about a CPA earlier, I would highly recommend that. Just CPA is your friend. Any sort of professional asset you have, that professional team, starting early with that, and leveraging your relationship with a local banker and a CPA.
Thank you. Yeah, certainly to Nick's point, it's great to have someone that you can trust from a financial standpoint, not only to advise you in the beginning, but also to help you, prepare financial statements, look at profit and loss statements, to continually know what you're doing and knowing that it's worth what you're doing. The last thing I'll mention on this slide, which this one is extremely important as well, is not only when we say accounts, not necessarily just checking accounts, but also credit card accounts. I know the last presentation we did, we talked a lot about credit card debts and credit reports and all that good stuff. But certainly, if you've used a personal credit card to fund a lot of business expenses, unfortunately, that does negatively impact you if you're holding balances and will decrease your credit score. Even though those purchases maybe were intended for the business, it's still in your personal name. So it would be certainly in your best interest to ensure that you get a credit card that is in the business name. You may have to be like a co-signer personally for it, or a guarantor on the card, but make sure that it's in the business name. That way it is not negatively impacting you if you hold a balance or whatsoever for a month or so. So we'll move on here to the next one. Okay. How to set and refresh your business goals. So this is certainly different for everyone, and it kind of starts here from beginning to end from a transitional standpoint here. And I like the word refresh as well, because a lot of the times we do kind of have to take a step back and say, okay, well, is what I'm doing worth it? Am I making an impact, or are we actually making money here? Are we going to make money? And it might take some refresh every now and then. I know even on a daily basis here with what I do at the bank, sometimes I have to step back and look at my routines and possibly think, is what I'm doing actually benefiting me on a daily basis? And sometimes I have to kind of refresh that per se, just like the slide mentions. But, from the beginning here, the business structure is something that you're very early on in the process going to decide what you're going to do. Is it something that you're going to do on your own, or are you going to bring in a partner? Are you going to bring in investors? Are you going to have loans early on? A lot of the times people will have some startup loans that they get from individuals or from companies. And so in theory, then those kind of become partners with you through the business, and will need to be paid back over some time frame with some form of structure on that. And then kind of transitioning into personal income and personal commitment and then growth. I'll let Gene and Nick kind of talk about this as well, since they have a lot of the real world experience. They can provide a lot of good insight with this.
Okay, I'll go on and get started. When you think about your business structure, are you planning to run the business on your own, solo, or are you going to be bringing in partners? Some people do this as a family. Are you going to be wanting to have family come in and help? Maybe one person is a great cook and the other person just loves talking to people and selling the food. Are you going to have employees? If you're going to have employees, you'll probably need to set up some kind of way of payment. Are you going to pay them, take out taxes? If you're going to take out taxes, then you're going to want to have that in place so that you know how to manage the taxes that you've collected. Or are you going to be hands-on just all by yourself, or a passive investor? Are you just going to be investing in someone that you know that is good at making something wonderful that you want to market? What is your business structure? What are the goals for that? So those are some of the things you're going to want to think about. And then personal income goals. Is this going to be your primary income? If it is going to be your primary income, then you're going to want to kind of sit down and look at what do you need to survive? How much money do you need to pay your bills every month? And how much product are you going to have to market? And what's your profit level in order to be able to generate that kind of income? Or is it going to be a supplemental job? So could it be that you're just going to be working on the weekends? Maybe you're going to go to festivals with your food truck, or what kind of places are you going to be able to take your food truck? I mean, these are the kinds of things that you're definitely going to want to think about. Are you going to park it on the street? If so, do you need a license to park in that street? Will you need permission from the city or the county? Or are you going to go to parks? If you're going to go to parks, again, will you need permission? Would that be something that you just do on Saturdays? Or are you going to do the fun thing and travel around and take your cart to all these wonderful festivals and just be a part of that? Or are you looking for an investment with future payouts? So that would be something where you're putting all your eggs in this basket now, trying to build something, and hopefully with plans, of course, that it will pay off in the future. So those are kind of some of the things you want to think about. And if you need a consistent paycheck, of course, you're going to want to make sure that you have a plan in place. That means you're going to have a place to market your product. So that could be in Richmond, Virginia. Breweries are big places for lunch trucks, food trucks to go. They want them there. They don't want to serve food, and in order for them to stay in business, food has to be sold. So they bring in the lunch truck, the food trucks in, and they cook right there on in their truck, and then the brewery doesn't have to worry about it. And big businesses, the food trucks are parked outside, out during the day for lunch, and they would then, I'm not sure, you'd have to find out, do you need to get permission from the company to park there? But those are some of the things you're going to want to think about so that you have a plan in place to be able to pay your bills to stay in business. And then there are personal commitment goals. Do you have limits on the amount of time you're able to give to the business? Is this part-time or full-time? Are you able to work in the mornings? And if you're able to work in the mornings, is there a place that you can take your food truck? Are there functions or activities where you know you'll need to hire outside help? For example, say you are doing something where you're catering. You're going somewhere where you're going to need someone to potentially serve the food and you cook it. Or will you need to go out and maybe place tables out? Will you need help? Do you want to accomplish a goal centered around a mission or social impact? So these are just things for you to think about. How do you want to manage your goals? And then we have the growth goals. Some people just have an idea, okay, do you already have a restaurant? If you have a restaurant now, you're just expanding. You're taking your food, you're purchasing a food truck, and you're going, you've already accomplished your advertising. Are you just growing that business into a larger business? Or do you want to build a business that can eventually be franchised after opening a few successful locations? Like, say you have the best brownies in the world, and nobody has a brownie like yours. So if you go out and you sell your brownies and you're successful at it, then you might be able to market the business so someone else can take the same concept and sell that same brownie. It's pretty exciting if you can do that. Or do you want to attract investors as you continue to scale the business? So those are some of the things you just want to think about. These are things you're probably going to want to write down. So you're going to write down what are your goals for your business structure and its impact. What are your personal income goals? Do you envision your personal commitment to the business? What growth goals have you set? These things that you're going to want to think about is managing the product. How do you market it and keep it fresh? And then what are you going to do with whatever's left over? If you have something left over, that can be something that just could be part of your mission or a social impact where you can take it to a food bank and just donate it. Let's see, does anybody have any questions? Does anybody want to say anything more, Nick?
Yes, I
Anything
feel like
you'd like
those
to
are all
add?
great practical considerations, really. And what you had said to commitment, I think one of the big things you should ask yourself are what levels of commitment and focus are you willing to dedicate to this to get it off the ground? What is your personal organization level? What you are able to do and manage on a daily basis? And a big one that kind of ties back to earlier in our presentation is how do you define success? What would make this business a success for you? That's what you should keep in mind when you consider some of these questions and move forward with your business plan.
Great,
But
great.
anyone
Good.
out there have anything you want to ask?
One thing I
All right.
will just kind of add to that is, obviously your business is very personal to you, and we will certainly provide all of our contact information. So if you do have a question and maybe you just don't want to bring it up on the call, you can certainly reach out to us afterwards to discuss any of this as well. So don't feel like this is your only time you're going to catch us. Certainly we're available to you after the call as well. So I will transition here to the next slide. And this is just kind of reiterated what we just talked about. So we'll go into the next section here. So how do I pay myself? Definitely something that a lot of business owners ask. Not many of them do. I always see a lot of business owners when they come in and talk to me here at the bank, they have, loaned a lot of money to the business to help any sort of expenses that might have arose. And I always see on the balance sheet, usually there's a note payable back to the owner, but usually it's never paid because you're going to ensure that utilities and expenses and your payables and everything else are paid. And if there's money left over, then you may pay yourself back, or you may reinvest it back into your business. But if you do, there are certainly different ways to do so. You can do it through a regular salary where you issue yourself a paycheck, and then a W-9 at the end of the year, or you can do it a little bit differently through an owner's draw. Most commonly, though, we do see just sort of a salary Usually, though, it's kind of hard to have a set salary if you're a business owner because income and expenses are not going to be consistent. So you can't tell yourself, "Oh, I'm going to pay myself, $1,000 every 2 weeks or whatever," because at that time, business may have dropped and there may not be as much left over. So really, most of the time, it's whatever you're able to pay. I'm sure, is usually what ends up happening that way. But keep in mind that by doing this, it's very important to keep in mind the payroll taxes and proper withholdings and Social Security, like the slide mentions as well, retirement plan contribution limits. You need to know the limits of these, and this is, again, kind of going back to the trusted financial advisor. Have someone that you can talk with related to these human resources type items to know that what you're doing is the correct way to do it. If you have someone that you bring in, Gene mentioned earlier about contracting out certain things. If you do that, keep track of that. And if you need to issue them a 1099 at the end of the year, you certainly need to do that as well. So just know the ins and outs of paying and receiving payments, paying yourself. That way you don't get into trouble at the end of the year with old Uncle Sam. And Gene or Nick, if you all have any real life experience with this.
Talk to a CPA. That is big advice coming from someone who went at this without really knowing what I was getting into at first. But my CPA was great. They helped me to navigate all of this, and by the end, I was able to take a substantial distribution and not have to pay near as much taxes because of the S corp structure. We'll get into that a little bit later, how to avoid things like double taxation and how to properly pay yourself. But again, talk to that financial advisor. They'll help you navigate all of this and figure out what does every bank have a CPA? Well, we employ CPAs, but I'm talking like actually hiring one for yourself that is for you and your own personal finances that has that professional relationship you can build. Like CPAs have different offices where they will file taxes, help you to start businesses, and answer different types of financial questions if you have complex like financial needs of any sort. But directly to answer your question, yes, practically every bank does employ CPAs to one extent or another.
Yeah, and one other thing too is, when considering taxes, of course, within payroll taxes, all states and counties are different as well as far as paying back your income taxes from the business. You may have B&O taxes that occur under the city of Beckley here in West Virginia. You got to pay a tax to the county, you got to pay a tax to the city, and if you're not paying enough, you'll certainly find out about it really quickly. But just be aware going into it, about wherever you're going to operate. More than likely, you're going to have to account for those taxes. And the best advice that I could probably give related to that as well, because certainly it is expensive when we say the T word, but try to open up a savings account and have some sort of a plan in place to where you're contributing monthly and putting money aside. So that way, when these taxes do come up, whether it's payroll or this mentions avoiding year-end surprises, that certainly is one way to mitigate a year-end surprise, is that if you've already got the money set aside into a savings account, it's already there, you're not missing it, and it's not cutting a big hole into your primary operating account at the end of the year. So any questions on this?
Just a small tie-in
I
to
just,
that. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's okay, go ahead.
One thing that I did just to mitigate some of the bookkeeping myself is I used a payroll software that helped to take the taxes out, and they kept it in an account for me and would transfer it over whenever tax times came. So that's one thing you can look into. I don't want to endorse any specific products, but there's a lot of options out there, and they're usually pretty affordable even for a very small business. What were you saying? Sorry.
That's a good point, Nick. I was going to say that finding an accountant, a personal accountant, is something that you want to interview people because they're going to be really important to you, and you want to make sure that they're not, that they understand your goals and are able to work within your budget, and someone you can work with. They can almost be like family. I know my accountant was like family to me. So anyway, it's good to interview a few. That's all.
Definitely.
Okay, great. And this is just kind of a input slide here. So we'll go on to point number 4. So business structure and organization. Nick, I'm going to let you take this one since you're a lot more familiar with this than me. And I know you mentioned that you were set up as an S corp, I believe, right?
Yes, that is the case. And S corps are a little bit of a new addition to the tax code, and there's a lot of ways you can go about it. Practically, you can start an LLC or a C corp and transition into an S corp, which has a lot of different tax benefits. Um, Also, with any sort of LLC corporation, whether that's S corp or C corp, you're going to lend an image of credibility with that just because of how you have to file. And it also offers some legal protections for limiting personal liability when choosing these. That's another reason why you want to separate your personal and business assets, because if you are found to kind of muddy the waters with your personal transactions and your business transactions under one of these structures, that can have some serious tax implications. And it's best to just try to avoid that situation entirely by having separate accounts, especially for those structures. When it comes to sole proprietorships, you can use a personal checking account, although it's not recommended. It has pass-through taxation. What that means is basically the business doesn't file a separate tax return. It all goes on your personal tax return. So it's just a 1040, same as always, like if you were employed anywhere else. General partnership, it's, everyone has different needs. I wouldn't generally recommend a partnership just because it does make decision making, management, some executive functions a little bit more complex, and um, it still has that double taxation, something that you really want to avoid, the FICA tax. If you're employed somewhere, you might know about it, something that appears on your taxes, on your what am I looking for? The pay slip. Yes. So on the pay slip, you'll sometimes see like 7% deducted for FICA. As a business owner, you're paying about 14%. And that's something you'll see in sole proprietorships and partnerships that an S Corp can help you to sidestep if you arrange things properly. Um, what I was saying about the distribution earlier is that if you're taking a quote unquote reasonable salary, then you can take what's left over as a distribution. And what they define as a reasonable salary changes every year and it shifts with the economy. The IRS offers some guidance on that. So some choose a 40-60 split between distribution and salary, others choose 50-50, but it's very important to consult with a CPA on what your business goals are. And if you're in a position where you can receive that distribution, the CPA will help you pick what's most appropriate in your situation so your business and yourself reap the most benefits. Um, all in all, though, C Corp is generally for the larger businesses out there that are, any SP 500 corporation is going to be a C Corp. S Corp is limited to up to 100 shareholders. The way I had it arranged, I was the only shareholder, but I enjoyed the tax benefits and legal benefits that offered me. Um, the reasons I chose that, I mean, I'm not saying S corp is the only way to go, but the reason I chose that is because the entity protected my personal assets in the event one of my employees caused any form of damages, especially as a starting out business like that. It was really hard to come about insurance. And second, profits that were left over after deducting that reasonable salary and other tax deductions were no longer subjected to that self-employment tax that's generally referred to as double taxation. But again, big thing is talk to a CPA or other trusted financial advisor about what would be best in your situation. A lot of people starting out, if they want the legal protection, an LLC is a good choice. And as you start to build up your profits, S corp is usually the natural transition. But did anyone have any questions about the business structure? Anything that you might be thinking about for your own business? Any considerations on the structure there? Double taxation. Okay. So, I don't know if anyone's heard of the FICA tax, but that's essentially, let me pull this up. It's the Federal Insurance Contributions Act tax, and most places actually it's 6.2%. So you pay half of that if you're an employee. There's an employee and an employer end, and it's split 50-50. If you're a sole proprietorship, you're going to have to pay both sides of that because you're both the employer and the employee. So they sometimes call it double taxation, sometimes they call it the self-employment tax, but it's essentially that you're paying the FICA tax on both the uh, side as being an employee and the employer. And if you're paying salary through an S corp, you do have to pay that on that end, but the distribution you don't have to pay that on. A CPA can help you to navigate all of that, but double taxation is in some ways leaving money on the table, where you could just arrange your business to reap better benefits in terms of the taxation and legal protection. But any other questions about the structure, or did that help clarify what double taxation was, or was there something that I had mentioned you might want me to go into further? I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but there's a lot to it, and generally CPA is your best resource to help you talk about your vision of the business, and they can help you to offer a couple solutions so you can see how that might look once you run with it whenever you operate your business. All right. In that case, Jordan, would you like to continue?
Sure. Thank you for that. You're very knowledgeable in that. So, or instead of a CPA, you can just call and ask Nick.
I've done a little bit of digging. I had to do a little bit of research on my own. It's different when
That's
it's
what
your own
real
money.
world experience will get you. Whenever you've been the one having to complete the paperwork and go through with the Secretary of State's offices, you tend to absorb a little bit, I'm sure. So.
Oh, yes.
And Nick, honestly, I've never talked to an accountant that was able to explain it like you just did, so you did a great job.
Oh, well, thank you.
Absolutely. So this is kind of what we've been discussing, though, as far as organizational items. These are the things that we mentioned. That you would need to open up a checking account or to apply for any sort of business credit. You need permits, licensing, insurance. I'm sure with food trucks, Gene, you will probably know. There's probably permits that has to be in place to operate in different areas, whether they're commercial or residential. So you always want to make sure that you've got exactly what you need in order to operate. Because the last thing you want is to have to worry about being able to operate after you've made sure you've taken care of everything on the back end, purchased all the food and inventory and everything. And the last thing that you want is someone to say, nope, sorry, you can't be here today for that because you didn't get the proper permits and things to operate. So definitely keep that in mind. We talked about trademarks and service marks as well. Gene mentioned, if there's a special recipe that you do it and you do it the only way that you do it, and that is your moneymaker, consider, protecting your investment in that sense. Make sure that it's not something that somebody else can come in behind you and scoop up and be a copycat. And then a DBA as well, doing business as. This is a form of a business, but I always encourage people to understand that a DBA is essentially, it can be you doing business as another business, or it can also be one business doing business as another business. So there's some complexities kind of behind that. Again, it's something that if it's right for you, I would talk to a trusted financial advisor and figure out if it's better for your type of business, because everybody's is going to be different based upon the product they're selling, the services they provide, the types of, customer base that they have, whether it's a commercial base or a primarily individual base. All that is certainly, jumped ahead there. All that is certainly different for everybody. But I would certainly touch base with your state, local businesses, call up your offices in the towns in which you operate, and just make sure that you've got everything in place. So any questions on that? Because there's a lot of important information on this slide. Okay. This also mentioned too here, I wanted to mention, registering your business domain name. So if you have a website, the first step in building awareness for that, and advertising your business is online nowadays, as we all know. So certainly want to get that domain set up, purchase it. That way somebody else can't buy something with the same money that you need. So another important question, that people ask a lot of times over here, I like this one. It says, how much money do you need to get started? And that's really kind of a very vague question. Again, it's going to be different for everybody. It just depends on exactly what you're doing, where you're operating, who you're serving, that kind of thing. What I would highly recommend in order to figure out, okay, well, how much do I need? Sit down, create your own budget. You don't have to be a CPA or talk to a CPA to simply create a budget. You can itemize exactly what you're going to need to purchase, what your overhead costs are going to be, whether it's fuel, tires, buns, whatever have you. Factor all that in, and then at the end of the day, that'll tell you exactly, based upon your fixed cost, how much product or services do you need to sell and provide in order to cover that. So that really ultimately answers that question. As I said, it's different for everybody. And that's something that you can easily just do on your own in that situation then. So I would highly recommend doing that multiple times too, because it's continually going to change. And the last thing you want to do is invest a lot of money into what you're doing and then find out at the end of the day that your prices aren't high enough, or it's a market that's already saturated or so forth. So be sure to do your homework in that sense. So Gene or Nick, anything y'all want to add on that?
I would just say, do you have a kitchen? Where are you going to make your food? You're going to need to stay in line with the county code for the health department when they come in and inspect. So keep that in mind too, as some of your costs. Will you be able to do it in your home? Will you have to set up a place away from home, or maybe you already have a restaurant and you're going to work from that, or you're going to buy from a restaurant and just take the food out. So those are some of the things you want to think about when you want to talk about cost of startup.
I'd like to add that if you do need financing to get started in the beginning, like say you lay out your budget and you realize you're coming up a bit short, but you have good credit as an individual, generally for small business loans, lenders will want to see an equity injection somewhere between the 15 to 25% range for the total cost of the project. So that's just like 15 to 25% upfront cash in hand, like before you apply for that loan. Also, and when it comes to business loans in general, if you've not owned your business very long, or you're just starting to think about starting the business, and you do realize you need the funds, I would establish your reason for the loan, gather your business and financial statements for at least the past year. 2 years is pretty standard in the industry. Prepare to explain your business plan. There's a lot of resources out there for setting up a business plan. And after that, just after understanding how lenders will assess you, and once you've decided on a lender, go ahead and apply for the business loan.
Yep, sounds great. And yes, Nick, to your point, When you are borrowing as a business, uh, institutions, banks like to see, like Nick mentioned, some sort of an injection by the business owner. Like if you're buying a vehicle, for example, we really like to see you put down 5 to 10% on that. And really what that is that just kind of shows the bank that, look, you have faith in the business. Same reason that you would be a personal guarantor on a business loan is that, you are saying that, look, if this business can't make the payments on this, then I'm going to personally continue to make the payments on this. It's just something that allows banks sort of some comfort in knowing that what you're doing, you believe in it, and you're going to ensure that no matter what, at the end of the day, that you're going to be able to make the payments on it. So slide on over here to the next one. So how to organize your finances. So this is certainly probably one of the most important slides in here. Cash coming in, cash going out, and then at the end of the day, tracking it basically. This is something that, Gene and Nick definitely deal with on a daily basis. So I won't act like I know more than them on this, but I will say from a commercial lending standpoint, what I see businesses accepting forms of payment in any way, shape, or form, because at the end of the day, I think everyone agrees that however a client or a customer wants to pay you, you're going to take it, whether it's paying rent or paying for a meal. So you got to be able to be flexible in that. You got to be able to, nowadays, it seems like everyone accepts credit card. And if you do accept credit card, are you charging a fee on top of that to cover your fee for accepting that? Do you receive money through PayPal or Cash App or all those other ones? I have a client that has some rental property, and they used to receive all checks from their tenants. Nowadays, a lot of their tenants are asking if they can receive a PayPal or a Zelle or like I mentioned, the Cash App. And that could be for a couple reasons. Maybe the tenant doesn't necessarily have the cash, but maybe Cash App or Zelle or PayPal allows them a little bit of credit. And so they can essentially charge their rent to send to their landlord. And so at the end of the day, the rent's been paid and they've been able to make it work on their end according to their terms. So be flexible in how you receive it. Make sure it works for you and your business, and make sure that it's not costing you more to receive that money than the money you're receiving at the end of the day. And then at the same time, payment outflows. How are you paying? Are you writing checks? Are you paying with a credit card? What's the interest rate on your credit card? Are you using a line of credit? All sorts of forms of ways that we can pay and receive money nowadays. And so you just want to make sure that, based upon your business, obviously on this call, it's a lot of retail, retail transactions, retail smaller transactions, because it's for some form of a breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And so, it's quick transactions. So you want to be able to have a point of sale that can process it. You want to have a merchant system built into that. You want to make sure that it's quick and secure. If it works off the internet or works off a cell provider. The last thing you want to do at the end of the day is if you have a line lined up around the block, that your point of sale system crashes, or you're like, oh, I'm sorry, we're only accepting cash now. Because what is going to happen if that's the case? You're probably going to have half your line leave because nobody carries cash nowadays. Gene or Nick, I'll let you all add to that. I just kind of wanted to mention that from what I see with my business owners.
Yeah, that's a very practical
Okay, you did
advice.
great. You just hurt my feelings thinking about people walking away. Sorry,
It's a
Nick.
worse sight.
I was just saying you did great there. It does hurt my feelings to think about losing customers and then walking away like that. We definitely don't want that. Go ahead, Nick.
A big thing on this slide that they're describing in concept without actually saying it is cash flow. Cash flow is key to keeping your business going. Profit is one thing, but the timing and cash in versus cash out is essential to maintaining operations. And a bit of advice, just practical advice on this, is a business credit card can give you some cushion by allowing you to pay later for things that you are going to receive payment for. And also negotiating with your different food vendors, that can be especially helpful in your business. Negotiating for later payment, that is, can help greatly with maintaining a positive cash flow, basically meaning that the money that's coming in you're using for operations isn't going into the negative before the end of the month. And again, business credit card, anything that allows you to pay just a little bit later can help maintain a healthy cash flow and prevent any hitches from holding up the business.
Hey, Jordan and Nick and Jean, I just want to give a quick 10-minute warning for today.
Thank you. Did anyone have any questions about this particular slide or about cash flow in general?
Yep, absolutely, because this is very important. So certainly here to answer any questions or like we mentioned too, after the fact, if anybody wants to reach out to discuss any of these. With the world evolving nowadays, you've got to be flexible as a business owner to ensure you're catering to your clients and your customer base for this. Okay, we will slide on here to the next one. What tools people can help you organize your business finances? So I think we have certainly exhausted the term CPA on this call, but we can't reiterate that enough. And doesn't necessarily have to be a CPA. There's several great bookkeepers out there that don't necessarily have those 3 letters after their name, but they are very experienced and can help you. Sometimes CPAs are even a little more expensive to utilize. So, if you can't afford one, just find a bookkeeper, or like this slide mentions as well, a bookkeeping system. There are a lot of different companies out there, such as QuickBooks and so forth, that offers finance tracking and everything that you can to utilize for your business to input your expenses and revenues and then spit out a financial statement at the end of the day. So whether it's on a person, it could also be a computer program. Just have some form of a way to be able to keep your books up to date, track your accounting, be able to, like this one mentions, profit and loss statements, cash flow, collections. All that is extremely important because at the end of the day, that is the lifeblood of your business and is what is keeping you afloat on this. So certainly have some form that you're keeping tabs on this. Financial accounts and tools. So this is something that is good advice in different ways for you to be able to maximize what you're doing. Certainly handling basic financial transactions, obviously that's going to be a business checking account. Building cash reserves, like I mentioned earlier, possibly saving for taxes. That will be great for a savings account. Money markets tend to earn a little bit more interest on this. Receiving payments from customers, obviously debits and credit cards, mobile acceptance and web acceptance, such as like PayPal or Cash App or Zelle. All those are great to be able to accept payment. I know a lot of churches even nowadays, instead of sending around the typical offering plate, they'll have a QR code on the back of the pew, and you can simply just scan and put in your credit card information, and away you go with that. So you got to be flexible and modern nowadays to accommodate anybody. I would urge caution, that checks seem to be becoming a thing of the past. And checks kind of leave you vulnerable in a way too, because they have your account number and your routing number on them. So any way that you can kind of strengthen the security of your business and not put your personal information out there is always a good day. We will move on here. So next steps in summary, 6 steps to set up your business finance for success here. So obviously we talked about kind of writing down budgets and goals and for tracking your business performance and stuff. But I think probably, the most important takeaway here today and a lot of things that we've discussed is tracking. Knowing what is happening in your business from a finance perspective and kind of cultivating that and using that to grow with, that in hand will enhance kind of the business performance and allow you to capitalize on your goals that you have for that. So at the end of the day, that is simply the foundation that allows you to grow and kind of move forward. Jean or Nick, anything that you all wanted to add to that?
No, I think you did a good job.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into those points, but they're solid advice, honestly. Just look into your business network, consider what resources you have, and leverage what you can to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, even a trusted advisor can even be someone else, a fellow business owner, someone that used to do it, maybe retired. You know, whoever is out there that can offer you up some advice and give you some real world experience like that because they've already been through it is all that you need at the end of the day. So how can we help? So certainly, we will put our contact information in the chat. That way, you can record that and have that if you need to reach out with any questions about anything that we've talked about today, whether it be about accounts or credit or saving or taxes or most importantly reaching out to Nick to ask if you need to set up as an S corporation or an LLC. Nick can provide you advice, but don't hold him to it if it doesn't work out necessarily.
I'm not
but,
a tax professional.
Yeah, we like to advertise that we're not CPAs, we're not attorneys. We can just offer you experience from what we know. So, but you know, certainly connect with your resources. One thing I'll say too, no matter where you bank, because this is, even though this slide is purple and it says Truist at the bottom left-hand corner, we're not here to tell you that you have to bank with Truist. Just have a bank that is resourceful for you and that you can trust. And the reason I say that as well is because if your bank is truly working for you, you should be able to walk into your bank and ask them any questions related to anything on these slides today. Your bankers that you work with that open up your accounts that you apply with, you know, through credit cards or through loans, they should be able to help you as well through a lot of this. So allow your bank to work for you and also be your trusted advisor at the end of the day. Like I said, we're not here to sell Truist products and services. We're simply just the ones doing the presentation. But your bank, no matter who it is, should be available for you at any time of the day for that. Any questions on any of that? Okay. Well, I believe that concludes it, and I think it is 11:59, so we just finished in the nick of time here.
Yes, thank you all so
Very good.
much, Jordan, Nick, and Jean. We so appreciate you guys coming and doing the workshop today. I am going to share the survey link with you all. Can you see that?
Not yet.
It says it's sharing, but it's not there yet.
Okay, it might need just a minute to load. If not, if it does not pull up, all of our attendance, you can go to, it's bit.ly/Truist class survey. And it's just a really quick, short survey. It might have just popped in now. And
Yeah,
this
I
is
just got it.
this is just an internal survey for us, for the Bluefield EDA, to just ensure that we are continually serving you all the best that we can, giving you all the classes and the content that you need and that you want. And if I can ask all of our attendants, besides our presenters, if you can please put your full name in the chat. And if you don't want to share it with everyone, you can certainly click on Bluefield, West Virginia EDA and send it directly to me. I'll give you just a few minutes to do that. This is just for attendance purposes solely. So again, if you'll just quickly write your full name, that would be great. Very helpful for us in attendance tracking. I'll give you just a few minutes. And I will just say we are recording this, and we will be doing a recap blog on our website within the next week or so, and we will be sending everyone a link to rewatch or read that recap, and we will include all of our presenters' contact information on that as well. So
Great. Thank you very much.
All right, no problem. I think we are good to go for today. Again, thank you, Jordan, Nick, and Jean. It was a great workshop, and we look forward to the next time we get to do this.
Excellent. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, everybody
Thank you very
have a
much.
great rest of your day.